Yeah.
Stop. Tuesday, that's us about there.
Yeah, Evelyn's fine.
That's just pretty coffee.
Yeah, well, it's on the right shape. So we couldn't change it again, but you do have to change it now. It's not that it is. Yeah, just someone's like,
Yeah. Right.
Just gonna get this license ready. Get you a seat. Get a seat. He's going on holiday. He's going on holiday apparently tomorrow. He's getting ready. So, 2, 3. Honestly, I never met him.
Very small, right. That's good.
Yeah. Some cheese. Kelly.
Well, for someone.
Kia ora tātou, welcome to the July Motueka board meeting and Manawatia Matariki. So it's a week of celebrations of Matariki, which is also known as Pleiades, refers to tiny eyes or eyes of the god, time to celebrate new cycle of life, time for remembering those that have passed, time for learning, preparing, sharing, and time to be with loved ones. We'll just start with karakia. Feel free to join in. Kia tau, mai te maramatanga, kia tau, mai te rangi marie, kia tau, mai te kaha me te pai pakaro, mō tēnei kaupapa, uie, ai ki e. So let's be grounded today in clarity, let's be peaceful, let's be strong and considerate for this purpose, bring together, bind together, and so it is. So welcome everybody. Board member Knowles from Golden Bay, you're welcome to join us at the table. We have apologies from Chair Maru and board member Hughes. So just a motion to accept, and that Deputy Chair Graham will, myself, continue as chair for the rest of the meeting. So passed by Councillor Dowler and second by board member Hart. So I've slightly amended our run sheet today. So we're going to quickly go through declarations of interest and confirmation of minutes before we get into public forum. So are there any declarations of interest for today? Board members?
Yes, from myself, the discretionary funds application for Motueka Events Charitable Trust, as I'm a trustee.
Thank you. It's the Motueka Event Charitable Trust. And can we have a motion to accept the minutes from June Community Board Member Armstrong and us Kinder. Board Member Hart, all in favour? Any against? Carried. Okay, so we're going to be moving into public forum, and We don't have it printed off today, but we will have things available for people to read what public forum's about and how to be involved. So I'll just quickly go through the rules for speaking in public forum. Speakers can speak for up to 5 minutes. This is including questions from the board. All meetings are recorded and available by public. The chair may decline or terminate a presentation where the speaker is criticising elected members or staff. The speaker is being repetitious, disrespectful or offensive, and the matter is subject to legal proceedings. For elected members, as we know, questions are confined to obtaining information or clarification on matters raised by the speaker. No debate or decision will be made at the meeting on issues raised during the public forum, unless related to items already in the agenda. And also, please note, you can register to speak online. So Emma's got the website up there. So via tasman.govt.nz website, council meetings, speaking and presenting at meetings. And then complete that form, and please do that 24 hours before our meeting. All right, so the first speaker on our agenda is Mr. Hallier. And just to let you all know, I will be timing this just to make it easier for myself.
Madam Chairman and ladies and gentlemen of the board. For those who don't know who I am, I'm Ray Hallier. This library was the council's quid pro quo to get the vote that enabled the Waimea Dam to go ahead. The council has honoured its obligation to the local tangata whenua by including Maori images and carvings on the building. But the council has ignored another obligation it has with regards to the library, and that's to the library's original founder, Edward Fearon. In the early days of the Motueka settlement, Edward Fearon saw a need for and established a library in a building near where the Motueka RSA now stands. Some years after the establishment of the library, the books were all destroyed, leaving the village without a library until such time as a new library was re-established in the new Borough Council chambers that was built where the Elevation Cafe now stands. The grateful town fathers felt obliged to attach a plaque to the new library to honour Mr. Fearon's service to the town. The library and the council chambers outgrew itself, and a new library was built beside the Memorial Hall, and the plaque honouring Mr. Fearon's service was attached to the wall where it remains to this day. I think it's quite insensitive that the present council staff has lacked the wit to ensure Mr. Fearon's plaque gets attached to the new library in a prominent place. Would the board have this rectified, please?
Thank you. Were there any questions from the board? Yeah, John. And next speaker, Claire Balance. Sorry, Sheena.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Kia ora, everyone. I'm Sheena. I'm talking today about the walking and cycling strategy 2022-52. I propose that the walking and cycling strategy incorporates deliberately confusing, misguiding language, definitions, and content. Proposing a cycleway as a method to improve our community while dismissing many community concerns and obscuring its purpose and intent. In previous cycleway meetings, a TDC representative stated that he did not know what a 15-minute or 20-minute city was, or a smart city, when asked by several members of the community. However, this appears On page 9 of your own document, very clearly, prominently, this is an example of services that enable a 20-minute city, 20-minute community, beg your pardon. My question is, does this statement refer to a smart city? The priorities of the walking and cycling strategy are overtly to diminish the use of private vehicle usage. I draw your attention to policy 1, deprioritising private vehicles. Policy 3, removing on-road car parking. Policy 4, removing car parking spaces. Policy 6, the council will work towards all urban streets having either an effective 30k an hour speed or a protected or separated cycleway. Policy 7, replace car parking with green spaces. This diminishment of private vehicle usage is in line with smart city goals under the guise of cycleway development. And then there is the obscure term on page 6, which we should all look at, which refers to, and it's in bold, suppressed demand. There is no glossary in this document. So what is the TDC's definition of this term? Is it in fact, as it appears in the World Economic Forum documentation, as a method of controlling private vehicle ownership and movement? Please provide a definition. Page 6 reads, instead of assessing if a location needs a better pedestrian crossing based on how many people currently cross there, we will shift to looking at how many people might be using this crossing if it were safe. We call this suppressed demand. This implies that regardless of the current need, we will do it anyway. Moreover, I draw your attention to the various proposed plans. Brightwater, Wakefield, Richmond, Mapua, Motueka, Murchison, Takika, Collingwood, St Arnaud. It is all there. However, on these maps, the key is incomplete, and I draw your attention to the Motueka ones. There is no symbol for the no parking sign. This is a significant oversight, obscuring the public from central and prioritising a proposal that will prevent car parking on all public roads in and out and around Motueka. This document does not take into account the additional traffic congestion caused by multiple crossing points and the accompanying dangers thereof, such as large trucks needing to pass on the centre lane over raised speed humps. The additional pressures of drivers driving at 30 k's an hour, thus increasing carbon emissions while stopping and starting, and the absence of additional car parking areas in the current proposed plan to support local businesses. My questions are as follows. Is this a 20-minute community, a smart city? Are you proposing this for Motueka? Yes or no? What is the official definition of suppressed demand? We deserve an explanation. Are you actively discouraging private vehicles from parking in and around Motueka due to the no parking zones and no additional parking alternatives being provided? Can the proposed cycleway in Motueka be on one side of the road? Why is it on both sides of the road everywhere? What measures are being taken to protect local businesses and communities? The Memorial Hall, at Motec, at Parklands. If I take my kids up to the Memorial Hall, where do I park? In this plan, nowhere.
It's just at time.
Thank you. So I propose that this document is inherently confusing, simplistic and deceptive.
Thank you, Sheena, and apologies about the wrong name down. Were there any questions from the board? And just for everyone else, there is copies of the walking and cycling strategy from TDC available there that you're welcome to take away. Next speakers, Phoebe and Kevin Newlands.
So we've got the anti-brigade into that.
Mm.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for hearing us today. I would like to talk to you today regarding the consultation to the community about the Motueka cycle plan. How was this done to introduce us to the Tudor Precinct Cycleway Plan Transport Choices? My first question is, why is a cycleway being funded by a Climate Emergency Response Fund? Why is it? I ask myself. June the 25th, a letter received in the mail, this is this little baby here, stating that we've got an invite to the meeting. June the 26th, we got a letter, a response and stuff saying that is a Motueka cycleway deferred, which obviously confused people and everyone didn't know if this was on. On June the 26th, Motueka cycleway deferred post is published 22nd in the Star, as stated. June the 27th, after questioning if the meeting was in fact on, the Motueka Library was called. They checked with several people as it had nothing, they had nothing on that event. The call was diverted to TDC. They stated this is highly unusual. It should have been on the calendar, but it's not. It should be in the meetings list, but it's not. An hour later, Amy from Transport Choices called. Her first question was, how did you find out about the meeting? When stated it was due to the leader, she replied, that's all right then, and made the invitation to see the plan. Several other community members have also had the same experience. Big question mark on that one. The 27th, the actual presentation at Motueka Library, we attended the meeting and very quickly found that it was not a community approach, as it was addressed to us several times. We only want to hear from the Tudor Precinct residents. Concerns about the project of not addressing anything wider than the Tudor Street cycleway, and they were not wanting to address anything regarding the High Street or anything other plan strategy. When community members asked questions, they were made to feel like we were at a school, and by asking questions, one of them responded that community members were conspiracists. Why was this said in the meeting? That they only wanted to hear Tudor Street residents, from Tudor Street residents' feedback, when it is on the letter saying that community feedback is important. Why is this not a community issue where people are informed on the correct information and open to discuss the issues with this plan? Representatives seemed confused at how they were going to get us the plans. Feedback forms, we were asked to fill in the form, which is this little baby here, but in amongst that form, we had no proof of when it needed to be in, when the submission needed to be in, and where to take it. We then got told to take it to the library and it would have a box, and also to the civic centre, and they no longer they didn't have a box either. So I encourage them to get the box and also to probably have more plans, because there will be a lot of people coming through. Let's go let's look at Local Governing Act 2002, amended in 2014, consulting with people. You are bound by this act. We are the people, we want to be heard. What does this mean? We are looking for open, honest, bigger picture communication, what this means for everyone and all businesses in Motueka. Key questions. How do people have a voice in this? How do you know we have been heard? Where are our submission forms? What is the action plan around these? What accountability is there in this project? What information and where is it guided from? Who is in charge of this plan?
We as a community want truth and prosperity. Today, we are hearing our people. I would like this statement. So we've got a statement that we'd like to be read. Is it okay if we read some community concern today? You've got 25 seconds. 25 seconds. Can we read 25 seconds of some concern? That would be awesome. 15 seconds. Go.
We, the concerned people of Motueka, as well as the wider Tasman area, hereby serve notice to pause the decision-making processes and seize any material works regarding the proposed amends to the Tudor Street, Wilkinson Street, Thorpe Street, Harbour Road area under LTNZ project for carbon reduction. With immediate effects on the grounds that we have not been provided with an environmental impact report, nor are we aware of such a report having been completed, published and made publicly available. We expect and require such an environmental impact report to quantify the overall carbon footprint of all works associated with the planning and undertaking of any and all activities from commencement to completion of works. We expect and require such an environmental impact report to quantify the payback period in relation to the carbon created from such proposed activities. We have not been provided with a comprehensive safety report detailing major incidents on the aforementioned streets to quantify the safety concerns purportedly being addressed. We have not been provided with a cost-benefit analysis associated with mitigating the safety concerns as detailed in the safety report above. We have not been provided with a report detailing the current use of these streets and the actual composition of all road users, nor are we aware of any projected forecasts of road usage. Any such report is required, as well as a full explanation forming the basis of any such forecasts and assumptions. Please notify us of the individuals who is or are responsible and accountable for any and all negative consequences due to lack of consultation planning, forethought, including but not limited to road hazards, incidents and accidents due to the positioning of pedestrian crossings too close to intersections of traffic, potential dangers of added obstacles, raised footpaths and ramps to the elderly, physically impaired and scooter users, congestion caused by narrowing of roads and limiting the flow of traffic, the congestion and danger and added danger of insufficient truck access and maneuverability, whether deliberately or unintentionally, adequate consultation with the Motueka community, both urban and rural, and the surrounding communities that use Mot as a thoroughfare or local hub has not been undertaken. It is apparent that consideration regarding the usage of the greater community has not been taken into account and given the weight it demands and deserves. It would appear that due process for consultation has not been followed. Please provide us with the council's guidelines regarding the process for community consultation so this can be verified accordingly. Please provide us with your conflict of interest declaration and registry as compiled regarding this project. Regarding the meeting held on the 27th of June at Mott Library, a number of important points were raised. As yet, no feedback has been provided directly to these questions, concerns and suggestions. I can fit a bit more in.
Nice. Sorry. Sorry, what was your name?
Caroline Stockdale.
Caroline. Thank you. And for trying to get through that quickly.
Sorry if it was a bit garbled.
Phoebe, did you want to come and grab your bits and I'll just check if the board have any questions? Yes, we've got a question from Councillor Walker.
Madam Chair, is the board able to access what Caroline's just presented to us, please?
Staff member Kirby said that we can have the paper that was just read out by Caroline table. So we can accept that if you want to leave that with us, Caroline. And next on our list is Seb Paul.
I have requested a little bit more time, just given the technology limitations.
Oh, right, yeah,
Just requesting
okay.
a slide and moving through a PowerPoint.
Okay, yeah, all good.
Thank you, Madam Chair, community board members, councillors. What I'm going to show you today is information from the National Climate Assessment of the US Global Change Research Program as it presented to the US Congress and the President of the United States. I will clearly demonstrate the data concerning climate change, the information which is underpinning global policy making, as well as planning decisions here in Motueka, is being manipulated and deceptive. This here is the main page of the aforementioned report that went out to journalists and policymakers. Yes, US specific data, but indicative of a global issue. This page contains a lot of graphics and conveys a wide range of information. Please. From the overview page on the previous slide, here are some of the detailed infographics. We have one that shows heat waves increasing since 1960, another which shows Arctic sea ice declining since 1979, another one showing wildfires increasing since 1983, and one more which shows sea level rising since 1920. When you want to mislead people with statistics, picking your start date is very important. Next, please. First, let's look at the heatwave graph that starts in 1960s. They carefully picked a period during a global cooling scare to start their graph so they could show heat waves increasing over time. Next one, please. And here is the underlying data from the part of the National Climate Assessment which didn't go out to journalists and politicians. By hiding all the data before 1960, they were able to show a little bit of an upwards trend. The red bars are what policymakers saw, and the extreme heat prior to 1960 is what they didn't see. Next, please. This graph shows in pink all the data that was hidden from journalists and policymakers. 6, please. This next graph is the one that shows wildfires increasing in the US since 1983. In this graph of US forest fires from the US Forest Service is the one that didn't go out to journalists and politicians. And you can see why they had all the data before 1983, because there is a lot more burn acreage in the US prior to 1983. This graph shows in pink all the data that was hidden from journalists and policymakers. You can see the breathtaking fraud which is going on here. Now, next one. Now let's look at the Arctic sea ice extent graph, which starts in 1979. Starting in 1979 makes it look like sea ice extent is decreasing linearly. Please. This graph from the 1990 IPCC report shows in pink all the data that was hidden from journalists and policymakers. It's pretty clear why the National Climate Assessment is hiding all the pre-1979 data, because it would wreck their linear downwards trend line. 11, please. Here's one more graphic showing sea level rising over the past century. Now let's see what they're hiding. Sea level has been rising at the same rate for thousands of years. This graph from NOAA is made from data from the tide gauge at Lower Manhattan. It shows that sea level has been rising at a steady rate since the middle of the 19th century, showing a consistent 2.84 millimeters per year for the past 170 years. In other words, there is no indication that humans have had any impact on the rate of sea level rise. Next one, please. And if we go back even further, we can see that sea level has actually been rising for about 20,000 years. 20,000 years ago, sea level was about 120 meters lower than it is now. From about 14,000 years ago to 8,000 years ago, sea level rose very quickly, but since then it's been quite slow, as we can see. Climate alarmists want you to believe that this 400 feet of sea level rise was all natural, but somehow the last few inches were man-made. Next one, please. Climate alarmists want you to believe that this is a scientific issue and not a political one. Here is a quote from Dr. Ottmar Endenhover, the IPCC co-chair of Working Group Number 3 in November of 2010. We, the UN, IPCC, redistribute de facto the world's wealth by climate policy. One has to free oneself from the illusion that international climate policy is environmental policy. This has almost nothing to do with environmental policy anymore. In conclusion, what I'm asking here, what I'm stating, is that if climate change is underpinning your decision-making processes, You must ensure your facts are full and correct. You must prove to the community your information is full and correct. You must take the information you're using to justify any and all projects underpinned by climate change made available in full.
Thank you, Sue. That's really interesting. Are there any questions from the board? Thank you so much. And those will be attached to our minutes for next month, so you can see that the slides. Sarah Priest. Sarah is not here. Okay. We have no presentations from staff. We'll move on to reports. So discretionary fund applications. Motion to receive the report, and then we'll decide on each application. So can I have a mover? Councillor Walker. Second. Councillor Dowler. Okay, so we've got a declaration of interest for this third item, so you're welcome to vote on the other two. Sorry. So the first application is for Community House Motueka. Do we have any questions around that from the board or anything to discuss? Or we move that we approve? The move by board member Hart.
We're doing them individually.
Yeah. Seconded by councillor Walker. And moving on to Motueka Event Charitable Trust. Are there any questions? We've got a
Happy to move.
happy to move by councillor Dowler, seconder, board member Armstrong. And then the final one, which there's already been discussion about the Motueka Samoan community. Unfortunately, their application requirement was post, so it's retrospective. So just movement from the board either to decline or approve application.
We should decline it. If we approve it, we have to do it for everyone.
Discussion.
I believe that we should be going back to that group and telling them what the dates are next time, so that if they carry out one next year, that they know well in advance to put it in, so they don't have to miss out purely because of the date clash.
Yeah, so luckily Emma has been in correspondence with them before this meeting to let them know once we knew that. So they're well aware for next time. And unfortunately, because we were hoping they might have another event coming up, that they could just amend their application for that, but they didn't have anything available. Yes.
Not necessarily in relation to this particular application. Yes, you're correct that we the event's already happened, so the rules say that we can't do that. I had asked in the previous meeting, and possibly also by email, I can't quite remember, about including in the application form a statement about the budget for the project. We don't have it on our form, but Golden Bay do have it on theirs, and therefore there's no place for them to say actually what we're going to spend the money on. And in this particular case, had this event not happened yet, I would still be asking exactly what you're spending the 700 on. It just says we're going to have an event. So could Emma get that done, added in, please?
Hold on, we'll just take a question from councillor.
Madam Chair, we discussed this in our last meeting, and it was decided that it wasn't fair to ask these groups to put a budget together. After all, we're giving them what, $700, and I'm pretty sure we signed off on that last month.
I agree.
Yeah, so that you did raise that point last board meeting, and it was discussed that because of the amount that we didn't feel that it was necessary to provide a full scale budget. Yes,
And
councillor.
the other point that we covered off was that we asked representatives to be here so that if there was a point of clarification that they in person could be asked the questions.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, they've been invited. Did you want to speak to that?
With most other things, like we've seen quotes for specific things. They're not saying necessarily the whole budget for the whole project. What are you going to spend the 700 on? That's what I would like to know. Is it going to be spent on venue hire?
Yeah, and that's
Which is a cost.
yeah.
That's all I didn't mean a complete budget down to the last dollar.
Agreed.
That's already been voted against, then
Well, the providing a full budget has been. I guess what might be worth doing is getting a copy of Golden Bay's to check.
Yeah, similar. It is similar with the chair. I think we just asked for, because again, we only give $500.
Yes.
We don't want people to go through a whole lot of procedure of a huge budget either. So we just asked for basically what it's being used for specifically.
Which we do have details of the project to be funded.
it's just
Now,
financial detail.
Yeah,
yeah, but I would assume that should be covered in that.
maybe it should.
Maybe when they come in.
Through you, Madam Chair. So we've got advice from Democracy Services that in the absence of a policy that says we should have a detailed budget, we should be lenient in terms of how we apply the constraints of what they document that they should spend the money on. And so in this case, it's satisfied that lower level of criteria.
And I guess when the application comes in, that's all right with you, just to scan that, they've got a little bit of detail around that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would work.
So you still member Hart?
Through you, Chair, is when we go through the application and we've got the opportunity to ask questions, that's when we have the opportunity to go a bit deeper.
Get further detail. Agreed. Okay, so just going back to the third one, which was the Motueka Samoan community. So option C, board member Hart has moved to decline that application on the grounds that it is in retrospect to the meeting. Is there a seconder? Councillor Walker. So everyone in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against?
Person was.
Carried. Okay, so now I'll just get this one right because there's been a change in this. Get the wording. Yeah, but are we different? I thought that's what we're doing.
Look at the discussion.
Oh, okay, so I'm just going to put it back to the board. So we've got staff member Grant and who else was it?
Strange.
And Tony. Moving on to the reserve financial contributions.
Introduce this to start with.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This particular report has got a whole lot of projects in it, as you will know, totaling a value of 1.233 million. We're also aware that the District Council is considering a confidential report on Thursday regarding a purchase of a property for the Motueka swimming pool. The question is the RFCs are not sufficient to do both. So the suggestion is that you defer this report till August until you find the outcome of not only the decision on Thursday, but the subsequent process in terms of purchasing the property, so that we know how much of the RFCs are likely to be spent. The other option you could choose is commit this and then say to the council that only this amount of RFCs are available for the purchase of the property and the rest of it needs to be funded elsewhere. And that's something that you would have to recommend to them. I don't recommend that particular option. I do recommend that, depending if you think the swimming pools are a priority over these projects here, is that we look to see whether we can purchase the property, and then we'll know how much RFC funding is left to start finishing off these projects. So we do have some amended wording on the recommendations up there, basically allowing for that to occur. If you have any specific questions on any of the projects at this stage, I'm quite happy to answer those. Grant and Tony are here to do that.
Any questions from the floor? So we've got Board Member Armstrong.
I've got a few, just a small number, just specific ones. The Stephen Bay Walkway. Does that budget include the $10,000 contribution that we have from special projects? Or is that, then?
I'd have to check on that one with managing the project.
Was that was included in the list to be voted on, because I think that Stephen Richards said they didn't have enough money and this would complete it. So I'm not sure if that's the 6,500 or the 16 that's there, or is that going to be added to that? Or it'd be nice to know. Thanks.
Sure on that one. Thank you.
Cemetery project. There's nothing budgeted for the 23-24 year.
What page you're on, sorry?
I'm still on page number 3, which is on page 20.
Oh, yeah.
And down the list of those ones there, the cemeteries. Given that we had in the special projects list from previously some work to be done on the plan for the cemetery, and that we said we won't put special project money into it because council is going to be doing that stuff, but there's zero there. So I just wondered if that's just pausing it for another year, or.
So my understanding is there is about $6,500 for improvements to Motueka Cemetery that came out of a previous plan. And thinking back to the previous board meeting, I believe was decided that that money would go towards those improvements and not redesigning plan as such. So continuing on with the program and completing as much as we can that available funding.
Using special projects money, 8,000. Different what I had understood. Third question, the Dix Reserve Playground, 81,000. Does that include the carousel that we are paying for as a board, or is that extra to it?
So the carousel has already been purchased, and so this is additional.
Additional, thank you.
Sorry, Board Member Armstrong, I've just got a couple of questions and they might be in relation to the ones you've already spoken on. So Councillor Walker, did you?
Yeah, I personally think we should be deferring the RFC's conversation until next August, until next month rather, because this board has made it very clear that their top priority is get a pool in our community. And so I believe we should be waiting to hear at our confidential session on the 20th of July what's happening about the pool before we sign off on any of our special projects. It's very clear where they want that money spent.
Mine was the same comment as
Yeah.
Councillor Walker, yeah.
It's fine. Probably some of the questions that board member Armstrong has asked is that we need to determine where this funding is and where it overlaps with your special funding, your special projects funding, and we need to provide good information of that. So when we come back to you in August, we'll have what we're going to be funding out of RFCs and what's being funded out of your special projects fund, so that we've got the whole thing in one place.
So Mr Kirby, does that mean we get our 2 staff members back to talk to it next month?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, Board, councillor Della.
What's Park, Motueka parking design and consenting? Is that inside the park or the bit outside the park down adjacent to the?
My understanding it's the bit inside the park, down past the grandstand.
So the grass area.
Yeah, discussion.
Yeah.
That's fine. Move on second.
Moved.
Okay, there's a move.
Second.
And Hart.
Yeah, so it's open for discussion.
Board member Armstrong, sorry to interject the board. Did you have any other comments?
There was just one other question, mentions with the skate park, note 3, I can't find note 3 anywhere, so I've lost. Just know what the note 3 is. It's just bottom of number 3 on page, what am I on?
Oh, right.
Agenda in front of me, but.
So just
It's on the same list that I've asked the other ones on, right at the bottom.
very last before the ward totals, it says Motueka Skate Park and then it's brackets note 3.
Pretty hard, but
Check that out.
that's all I was going to ask.
That is on. Well,
And I ask just a quick question, can he speak up? Some of us.
Yeah.
It's for us.
Yes.
Yeah, what's going on? Seriously.
as well, their comment,
Right, well,
no, too.
sitting here trying to learn, listening.
Thank you. Yes, we will do our best. Were there any other comments or discussions for the RFCs?
RSC stand for?
Reserve financial.
Contributions. They're contributions that come from developments, new subdivisions, new sections that have been created. There's a reserve financial contribution that's got to be used on capital works and reserves.
So we've moved. Yeah.
Got a mover and seconder.
Yeah.
We had discussion on it.
Yeah.
We're happy with it. Yeah. Maybe there's no other comments. Just with their support from it.
Okay,
Favour.
so yes,
You moved it, didn't you?
yeah, so we've got a mover, a seconder. Is the rest of the board all in favour?
Just one clarification question, please. Am I loud enough for you? I'm doing my best.
Hard to hear.
So if, we're deferring like that, if the council decides to set aside 1 million or whatever for that knocks this down to much more, this much lower level. Does that mean that by that stage, the decision has been made and our job would then be to work out which are the top priorities to pay?
No, so
That's the process.
potentially could be a workshop.
You could have some informal discussions about that priority, but you need to make a decision at a community board meeting on spending those funds on those specific projects, correct?
Okay, so mover and seconder, the board all in favour? Anyone against? Carried. Thank you. Okay.
Sort of day off now.
So you Thank you. Nice little expensive trip across the ditch.
Okay, so 7.3, page 29, request for approval of a new street name. Kia ora anga moana, which means ocean view. Motion to receive the reports and recommendations. Board member Hart, seconder. Board member Armstrong. And everyone else agree? Approve the name? Yes.
Right.
Anyone against? Carried. Okay. Right, moving on to the chair's report. So I take the report has been read. And I have a mover.
Move it yourself.
I'll move it myself. Can I have a seconder, please?
We can do-
And then we'll discuss. Yeah. Board Member Armstrong, thank you. Okay, so open for discussion. Yes, Board Member Hart.
On item 3.4 is special projects balance is available. 3.4.2, consider a second round within this financial year. Because there was quite a few items that the public voted on that didn't make first round. So I would like to see those, if we are going to do a second round, use those ones that didn't quite make the first, rather than reinventing the wheel. We've already got community voting on those other items.
Yes, Board Member Armstrong.
I've already got a few points again on item 3,
Yeah.
special projects. I checked back, we started with 30 projects that were suggested by the community. We narrowed it down to 20 that were sort of viable, and then we chose the final 12 that people could vote on. So there's plenty of other projects that have already been suggested, and some of them are still viable.
Okay.
And in fact, there were 6 of the 12, as Board Member Hutz just reminded us, that would have been, the cut-off line could be anywhere else. I went back to the advertisement that was placed in the online in the paper asking for votes. And the wording in fact was, quote, the board has approximately $55,000 in brackets plus some carried over from the last year, those brackets. So that was a statement of how much we had. So that wasn't a 55 is it. You have to fill up to then, no more up there. Secondly, and when it asked for rankings, it didn't say pick your first 6. It just said rank them from 1 to 12. So I believe the advertisement, what we went out to the public for, didn't say that we would only take the top 6 and the rest fail. So to me, we could have another option under 3.4 that says spend some of that money, and that we could decide how much on the next 3 or 4 projects that just fell below the line, rather than going out to a whole lot of more consultation. That's my comments about what to do with the extra money, or some of it anyhow.
Okay, thank you. I'll just seek and consult, so we discuss that.
We're doing special projects later in the meeting, and we can have that discussion then. At the moment, this report here is just the chair's report,
Information.
just for information. There's no decisions on it. So that feedback's fine. But when we come to the special projects, we can have that discussion and make some decisions then.
And then we can determine if it's order. Yes.
A few more questions on the chair's report. Shall I-
Yes, yeah, we're still going through it. Yeah, just wanted to.
So, sorry, 4.3.
0.3. Yes, I
The transport choices, sorry, am I on the right place? Yes, transport choices, sorry. Item 4. Is it possible at the next meeting to have an update on, I know it was mentioned that the emergency services, we were going to have a meeting with them, and it was some weeks ago, and we haven't had an update on that.
we've got some. You guys want to come to the table? Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
So this is Rob O'Grady, Project Manager for Transport Choices. Yeah.
Never met him before.
Never met him before.
Yes, yep. So definitely engaging with the emergency service providers. process is that we need to have something reasonably progressed to present to them. And we're arranging that now. Would it be an opportune time to maybe address other comments from the,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, that would be good.
So I'd like to acknowledge Phoebe and who are the others that spoke?
Ina?
Ina and, sorry, I've forgotten your name.
Caroline
Caroline, yep. So,
and Seb.
and Seb as well, yeah. So, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we are trying to be as transparent as possible. There's nothing that we're hiding. And in terms of the meeting regarding Tudor Street, it really was intended to be a meeting for the residents of Tudor Street to talk about things like trees and vehicle crossings and sort of where the parking might go. And we really weren't expecting a turnout from people from the wider area to question the mandate for the project. So I appreciate you've got some valid questions, and we've received the statement, the letter that we've read out. I've also got a list of questions from Phoebe, which Trinley's forwarded me. And we've got a meeting organised with that Phoebe's organised on Thursday. And I think the best approach for us is just to take your questions and answer them one by one. So that's the approach we'll take.
Thank you. Did anyone else have any questions around the transport choices section of the chair's report?
Sorry.
Yeah, so when you say public, I think the best way to do it is to engage with small groups, then we can have a proper dialogue. Excuse me, be courteous in the back there.
I'm being remade.
Well, just listen.
Yeah.
Hear out.
Yeah, I think
Thank you.
it's not being polite. I'm trying to engage in good faith, and I expect the same. So in terms of a public meeting, what tends to happen if you get a large group is that those who are confident speak up, and you don't hear from the full cross section of people. So there are many views in the community. We've heard over 500 bits of feedback. At the last community board meeting, we had a number of people speak very passionately about how they wanted cycleways, and they were really quite upset that the cycleways weren't happening on High Street. They were heard from a different section of the community, and it's our job to balance those views and try and find a middle ground, but certainly all the way through to be transparent and to answer the questions we've got. So my preferred approach is to have meetings in small groups, and Phoebe can arrange the meeting, and I'll do my best to get those questions and answer them.
Yeah, so that will be an invite only meeting.
But Phoebe's asked to have the meeting, so
Yeah,
having a
so
meeting with Phoebe and
that's okay. So, well, sorry, we're not actually taking any questions from the floor.
Can I just
Who wants to comment?
Can I just add on what Rob was saying? The small groups are largely those directly affected by the work that you're doing, whether it's Tudor Street or whatever. Those that are directly affected by the services rather than the wider public. So that's the small group. Yeah.
But then that's my wider community. So then you would be having a public meeting, which goes against what Rob just said. I'm sorry, but the reality, it affects us all.
I'm very happy to meet with anyone in the community. I've already had, I don't know, probably about 30 or 40 meetings with different people. So, yep, email me and I'll do my best to come and talk to you.
Would you be open to hosting a public forum that was
I think
managed?
that would be for the councillors to decide and community boards. So
Yeah.
if you wanted to arrange that, you could. And
Aye.
I'd suggest it be chaired by someone from your side.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Your side. What do you mean by that, Rob?
So hold on.
Governance side.
All right.
So look, I'll just like to tease that out too, because it's most definitely not a for and against situation here. I'm really open.
Language
to-
is making it seem like.
Okay, so we'll just let Rob finish his comments.
Yes. There's most certainly not a for and against approach here. We're listening to the community. We've changed the scope significantly from when it was first put forward. And we've acknowledged that people didn't feel like that they were adequately consulted about the walking and cycling strategy. And we're really trying to find a middle ground. And we're really grateful for the group of people we're working with. So I'm open to anyone to ring anytime.
So 4.2 in the chair's report, I have actually mentioned, given the feedback that we've had from community, that it may indicate the need for council or the community board to host a public meeting. So perhaps that's something we need to look into as a community board if council aren't going to do that. Yeah. And you'd be open to.
Yeah, I'm open to it, but I just don't think it's the most, I've been involved in this project now for a number of months, and I think the best way is to talk to people individually, receive questions and answer them, so.
Council fund the promotions of this so that the town is.
Have a discussion.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll take that offline and have a discussion and then get back to you about potentially hosting something. Just while you're here, I'm just going to give Rich Kirby opportunity to speak regarding an article that went out last week, I think, that was taken, from my understanding, just from the reporter watching a public meeting, not actually interviewing anybody or clarifying anything. So I just wanted to give Mr. Kirby opportunity to clarify and explain some of the comments that were brought forward.
Yes, well, obviously as officers, we have to implement what the governance arm, whether it's the council or the community board, decide and support. Where we have a community board or councillors that are not comfortable with where we're heading on operational decisions, then obviously we will revisit and hold back on that. And so my comment at the council meeting was that we need to know that we've got the support of governance on the decisions that we're making. That's not to say they have to support every decision we make. Sometimes they don't agree with what we do. And in the case of High Street, there wasn't unity around governance on that. So that's why we deferred that particular project. That's the comments that I made. As far as the 95% subsidy, at the moment, under the transport choices, 6.8 million, I believe, has been, 8.6 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, with the figures. We allocated to Motueka, and I understand High Street was about 2.3 million of that. Because we're not proceeding with High Street, that 2.3 million is reallocated to other projects around Motueka, around intersections and the like.
I can add something there too. So the amount would have been substantially more because as we investigated, we established that quite a large extent of High Street between Monaghan and Whakarewa wasn't in great condition and would need to substantially rebuild it to do the project. So another reason for deferring that part of the scope.
At the moment, the project work is totaling about 10.07 million. And I understand from the transportation manager that the extra 2 odd million on top of the 8.6 is coming from the low cost, low risk portion of their roading program. So, because there are sections that we can upgrade under that and not utilise the other funding. So, yeah.
And also we've included the scope that's been funded by the Infrastructure Acceleration Fund for the proposed Wakatu subdivision. And that's for a roundabout at the intersection of Manoi and Whakarewa Street.
Is that all right?
I just think there was a bit of confusion in the comments that the reporter reported, making it sound like we're going to lose a huge bunch of money because the High Street portion wasn't going ahead.
Well, the challenge is we've got deadlines on this. I think we have to have all the designs into Wakatahi by the 29th of September. And if we don't have them in by that time and have them approved, we won't have the money spent by the end of June next year. And if we don't have it spent by the end of June next year, that's when we lose it.
It's premature. Yes, Councillor Walker.
Through you, Madam Chair. Ms. Richard, can you just give some clarity around, so when they're going to be submitted, will they have had their safety audit and everything done, like the designs, before they go to be signed off by Wakatahi?
Correct. Yeah. So we've engaged independent safety assessor, called V Estrada, and they'll assess all their designs. And they've been assessing work as we've been going along.
So they'll all be, those safety audits will be done prior to that 23rd of September. 29th, sorry.
That's correct. Oh, it's a pretty tight deadline for us to meet, but yeah.
Thank you, Rob. Any other questions? Do you have anything else, Eva?
Yeah, I'd just like to say we're really trying to do our best to provide something worthwhile for the community. It's we've got a great scope, a list of projects, and I know that people are concerned. We've heard people speak today, but I'd really like to provide some assurance that these are good things that help kids get to school. They are good for the environment. It's about sustainable transport and transport choice, and about making it a nicer place to live. And I really think that needs to be kept in mind as well.
Thank you, Robert, and I appreciate that you're opening up to listen to all views on the subject. Thank you. Were there any other items in the chair's report for discussion? Yes, Board Member Hart.
Item number 6.
Oh, yes.
I've spoken with Janine Gillians, the manager of the library here, and expressed my concern with the Matariki event that was held here Friday the 14th. I think PDC possibly underestimated the popularity of the event. It was advertised as Dex Reserve, and I came here with my friends, and it was in the library. It was absolutely packed. We could only stay 10 minutes. It was too much. Huge health and safety concern. So I guess I want it noted that huge lessons learned. Maybe next time it would have to be outside, make use of the deck. I don't know, but it was.
She mentioned why that got changed.
It was miscommunication between the two parties. But Janine, without throwing her under the bus, she agreed, and she is talking to the events team to say that in future, the staff at the library need to be more in the loop, and you'd been used outside.
Yes.
It was a grave concern for a lot of people. Imagine.
I also attended, and it was good, but yeah, it was very claustrophobic.
I'd just like that noted.
Yep. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Walker.
Madam Chair, it's probably worth noting that one of those coordinators met with me last night and has assured me that the event is going to be much bigger. She's already had other groups put their hand up to be involved, and it will be outside. She will not repeat it back in said library for all the reasons you've stated.
Good to hear. So just on item 7 regarding public forum, any items for discussion from the board? Today's, well, we've also got last week's, but I think most of them have been covered off. So we had Mr. Hellier request to erect the sign for Edward Ferrin on the current library. Yes, Councillor Walker.
It's probably a further note for that, Madam Chair, is that we had a lot of stuff that was on display in our previous meeting room that is all of significance, and I can think of some of it which fell under the Kiosado sister city. And that display cabinet I do not see erected anywhere in this new facility, and I wonder what the process is if we're uplifting a plaque, which I totally endorse. Should we not be looking at all the artefacts that have been gifted for whatever reason to Tasman District Council as to where they should be appropriately displayed? Thank you.
A good point. Maybe that can be an overall thing that we can look at. Is that
we do have the Kiosado community, 20 of them coming here in September for a visit, so it will be paramount that that got addressed as well as the plaque on.
my understanding? There is a volunteer group managing that.
Kiosado Community Committee?
Committee?
Yeah, but they can't move stuff out of a TDC building.
No, I'm just thinking maybe have them involved with placement and stuff.
Yes, I can
Yes, she came to the service centre about 6 months ago.
No.
Megiddo, and said she was coming back. I haven't seen her.
Oh, okay, so you're in correspondence with somebody.
Well, she came to me to identify.
Do I need Mary to come back and see you to get it acclimated?
But yeah, she just came, made sure it was there and took the top of it. I can make access available.
Excellent.
So is it Mary from Kiosato's responsibility to choose a site here to put this stuff along with Mr. Halley's request about a plaque?
No, so I think that's the next step is we liaise with the library staff here. And I don't know where does that fall? That doesn't fall on you.
That's John Rid's area, so I'll have to.
John Ridge. Okay. So we can follow up with John. Wendy on those 2 points. Okay, any other further discussion? So we had Sheena speaking about the confusing language, and I think we've got some points of clarity, but we should go back to maybe the Transport Choices team for those points of clarity around the use of suppressed demand and what 20-minute community, what they are proposing when they're using the words 20-minute community. I don't think that's right for you to answer that now, or do you have? No.
So that would be the policy team that would have produced that document, but they did produce the document. So
Okay.
go back to our transport planners.
Okay, thank you. And just on Phoebe's presentation with Caroline reading out the community statement. So we've got that tabled so the board can review that. And there was a question in there around council's guidelines for consultation, which I believe there will be something. Is there something online? Community consultation process. And speak to that, I think.
Yeah, those are obligations under the Local Government Act.
Yeah.
But it all depends on the specific project that you're talking about. If you go right to the extreme, we'll do the long-term plan. That's consultation with the whole community across the whole district.
Yeah.
And you'll plan in the same space. When we're dealing with things like walking and cycling, Motueka, the consultation will also be across the general public, but also related to specific people that are affected by the specific project works. And what Rob was outlining before is sometimes if you go to a public meeting, those that want to raise things about their particular street don't feel comfortable about raising that in a public meeting. That's why it's good sometimes to meet with those individuals that are directly affected so we can hear from them directly, their concerns. So the degree of consultation, it largely depends on the scale and the type of project and who's being affected by it.
Okay, I guess maybe we just need something, a website, so people understand that it's at the discretion of that project or that.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to kind of describe as I've outlined because it's how long's a piece of string. It all relates to what you're actually consulting on. And that consultation process is related to the specific project that's been considered. And of course, you couldn't really put a general item up there other than the fact that we do have to consult on things that we do.
Yeah, I guess that's just an area that we really want to improve on, given what we've experienced over the last 6 months. So more communication, I guess, and just finding the right mediums to get that communication out to people so they can engage. And Seb Paul gave a really good presentation on climate change that we'll have access to. Were there any comments from the board or? I don't think it was.
Ask if we could have a copy of that.
Yeah. So there'll be a copy available to the board which will then be available to the public when the meeting. She was just going to ask for a copy as well. And given that is another area of where the community could be slightly divided, like we've seen with the cycleways, that potentially is another area that the community board could look at hosting a public meeting, allowing both sides of the story to present in a mediated form. So that's something we could potentially discuss offline. And Sarah wasn't here, but are there any other comments around public forum? Okay, and the last part, oh, sorry, there's two more parts. So board member Hughes obviously can't be here with us today, but I'm just referring to 8.2. So under the enforcement rules, we had a presentation last month, and it was in particular around enforcement of rules regarding an object being classed as a building after 8 weeks of somebody residing in it. So it's quite broad. So I personally couldn't find the subsection of that in the TRMP. So I guess it's something that we need to have a look at, but there was a discussion around if the board wanted to review the rules specifically around that one. Yes.
We're asking Kim Drummond and his team to come back to you with the actual clauses within the Tasman Resource Management Plan.
Okay, great.
Now, it's there again, consultation on the Tasman Resource Management Plan is a district-wide one. And if we're going to amend something, we would have to do a district-wide consultation on that amendment. So it's not a case of the community board making a call, it's a case of the council putting out a consultation document on the changes, if there are changes to the TRMP, and for the community to feedback on. Most of you will be aware that the government is actually changing the whole Resource Management Act, creating 3 acts, and we're working across the top of the south with Nelson City and Marlborough District to form a Tasman Environmental Plan, Tasman Marlborough Environmental Plan, because that's what the legislation's requiring us to do now. So it's very unlikely the TRMP in its current form is going to be amended in any way until we know what the legislation is about the new reformed RMAs in terms of the other 3 bills that are coming. I'm not familiar with the timelines on that. Obviously, there's an election this year, so the timelines might change again after that if the government changes. But I understand the 3 bills are not all going to be passed together. They're being passed sequentially, and I'm not familiar with the deadlines on that or the timelines on it.
Okay, no, good point. Thank you. Okay, yes. Councillor Walker.
So is there an appetite around this room to have a meeting to talk about having that reviewed? And I hear what Richard said, that we would have to do it as a district, not as a ward. But I can assure you that there would be some people in Golden Bay that would be more than happy as part of our district to have those sparkling board member mums next to me. Is there an appetite for us to have a meeting and to talk about this? Because I hear the RMA's changing, and also hear it's a year of elections. I also hear that we've already done as staff a whole lot of work around the Tasman Environment Plan, which is to replace the Tasman Resource Management Plan. I've also heard that we now have to do that combined with Nelson City Council. So it'll either be the Nelson Tasman Environment Plan or the Tasman Nelson Environment Plan. Those things are long-winded, yeah? They're big plans and they're way out there. The impact that this enforcement has here is impacting our community today and every day. So I would like to know, is there an appetite around the table to have this re-looked at, and what's required from our staff to do it as a district change, or at least a review? Thank you, Mr. Kirby.
Respond to that. I'm not involved in the RMA. Unfortunately, we'll have to get Kim Drummond to come and talk to you about the timing of all that, whether it's feasible or not. Line that up with the legislation as well. So, yeah, but if there's an appetite for you to have a discussion with them about that and get familiar with that, we're happy to arrange that.
Could that be done as a joint workshop with Golden Bay and us, or the workshopping as in workshopping for all councillors and community board members?
Conscious that member,
yeah,
but the other community board members from Golden Bay are not here. So I'm not sure what the feeling is on that, but if they're open to have that discussion, then we can arrange that. Correct.
You want
that be an action point, please?
Member Knowles, did you want to speak to that?
I'll just take back to the meeting for next year's report to see what the,
And does the rest of the board have an appetite? Yes. Yep. Yep.
Sure.
Different, okay. Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, so just quickly have a look through the actions list. Okay, so that's on page 42 and page 43. Only got 2 pages. So just to getting an update. So the first one on the list is around the driveway repair at Memorial Hall, which had
That's done.
done.
Yeah.
So we can, the next one, Lorraine. We can mark that
The building
is complete. So toilets and water fountain discussion, Buriwaka playing field. So that there has been a meeting with staff and the local rugby and touch representatives who utilise the field. Also some support from TRU, and Rob Coleman has looked into some options and looking at next steps. So that's something that potentially is going to fall into one of the plans. Richard Kirby to find out who is responsible for managing the planter boxes on High Street, isn't it? He did something around that, didn't
I
he?
did do. Grant, can you help out? Kind of boxes on High Street? Who's responsible for those? Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So just an update on that. Thank you. Board secretary to request if the regulatory manager is able to provide any statistics to the board on people living in vehicles and homelessness in the area. So did we not got that yet? Okay. Not sick. All right. So hopefully in time for next meeting. Chair Maru's not here. If anyone knows, request that heavy vehicles on Parr Street be added to the next operations agenda meeting. So that was back in May. So was it spoken about in June?
I was going to, sorry, through the,
Yeah.
I was going to ask Councillor Mackenzie and Councillor Walker to have it on the agenda, but then I realised the date and I couldn't make the meeting.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to add it for the August next meeting. Yeah.
Okay. So should we put that action under you instead of Brent?
Yeah.
Let's change it to Clear Hut to
Put it. I'll
get it up.
Talk to whoever's the
Can I just,
yeah.
I understand that one of the roading team has been contacting the heavy transport vehicles around Motueka. Encourage them not to use Park Street. Because at the end of the day, we can't stop them using it, but we can encourage them to continue to use the state highway. So, yeah.
I'll monitor the usage over the next few weeks. The operations calculator.
Count me in.
With any other items to add to the actions list from, because I don't think we've visited this last month or the month before. So were there any other items that needed to be added? One that comes to mind, and I'm not sure if it's for this, so please let me know, is the that came from Public Forum, and we've also had a meeting around the aerodrome premises. Is that something that should be on here? So it was brought up in
The
public.
noise, Clifton's letter.
Sorry?
Oh, the noise.
Clifton's letter, you're talking about that one.
Yeah.
The council response was distributed to board members, councillors, so yeah.
Yeah, but that further meeting that we had with Nick, was that something I'll just get Brent Madu to look into?
Madam Chair, was this a action point email from Councillor Maru or Chair regarding catching up with Martin Tunnelly recording. Because if it's not on an action list, potentially it will be over. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's also meant to be one with fire and ambulance services, but they have not gone back full. Widely hasn't gone back yet. So yeah, that should be another one on there. And that was just going to be biannual or as needed. Any others from the board?
Mr. Elliott.
Resolution procedural report.
Did it start?
Yeah. Second, but you haven't put it to discuss. You haven't actually put it to see.
Shall I finish? at 11? No.
Okay, carry on.
It was just actions. So just to finish off, number 11, items from board members. Were there any updates from councillors or any updates from elected community board members? Sure. And no updates from, yes, Councillor Dowler.
Yeah, just to let the board know that someone managed to successfully trash the grandstand at Sports Park, setting fire to seats, ripping other seats off their mountings. Staff have got it under control, we get it repaired, make it usable again. The only issue we have at the moment is that the seats that are there were made by a New Zealand company that went broke, and finding a little bit of difficulty in finding replacement seats, but we will get there in the finish. So that has now caused ratepayers a bit more cost by installing security lights and security cameras so that we can nab them. Next time, make an example of them in the courts with a luck.
Thank you. Any updates from Motueka Youth Council?
Ask if are you looking after the youth council still?
I am.
Yes. Are they going to be coming to meetings?
When they've got a staff member to run the said, my understanding is the Motueka Youth Council haven't met for a couple of months. And position is being looked at currently, because my understanding, presume it's public knowledge, is that the person doing it has resigned.
Okay.
I do meet with Waimea Youth Council. I'm meeting them tomorrow, but I have not been able to meet with Mott because they haven't had meetings. And when they do, yes, they will, we have a seat here for them, and hopefully we'll have one come and share with us.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's all for the chair's report. So just moving to accept the report. Oh,
You have to put it.
yeah.
You've got to move
So
and
we've got to
second it.
move in a second, so it's just all in favour.
Comment.
Oh, sorry. Did you have a question? Board Member Armstrong?
I wasn't sure it was be here under items from board members or under correspondence. There's a letter or an email from Donald Horn is up there about the Queen Victoria Street cycle path that we got installed a year or so ago. He's complained about that, and
Oh, yes.
we're just mentioning, I don't know, that I rode along there last weekend to get to a meeting at the aerodrome. Didn't have the car that day, so I cycled, and I would agree with him on his fourth and fifth points anyhow, that the southern end of it, there's no way in which you can get back on the road without either jumping over the curb or getting off your bike and going there. And then if you're traveling northwards, you have to cross the road to start cycling. And then it peters out when they've got those houses that they further up to the north, where the path, there's not enough room for a path. And then you have to sort of cycle off it and cycle across the road to continue going north. I didn't feel safe. It's not very wide road in that section there either. I didn't feel at all safe. So I think that I was wondering if we should go in the next agenda or in between, if council could suggest how much it would cost to fix those two problems at the two ends to enable people to feel safe on it. And it could be a special project next year. I just request that as something as an action perhaps. Or
Yep.
Yes.
Just a point of clarification, the $10,000 was actually to be spent on the road, Wakawera Street through to Park Street, the Marai corner. There's the little path there that's about that wide, that's only overgrown with trees. It needed to be widened, but that path that you're talking about was actually a result of the new heavy-duty power supply that was run from the substation down Hursthouse Street through to Greenwood Street here by Paul Hawkes' building. And when they reinstated that, Network Tasman gave us the option of putting a shingle surface instead of replanting it in grass. Since I've lived here for 30 years, there's been a sheep track along that grass where people were walking. When it was wet and ugly, they used to walk on the side of the road. So council took the opportunity and spent quite a bit of money on just getting that top surface, not laid out as a cycleway or anything like that, just to get it reinstated as shingle, just so that people had the option of walking along there instead of on the road during the winter time. Then all of a sudden people decided it was going to be a cycleway, and we know it floods because there was no drainage or anything put in, and we're starting to get complaints. But it can be upgraded, but it won't be cheap. I'm just telling you that was how that eventuated, was the fact the Network Tasman actually thought about it and thought it might be a bloody good idea to try and make some provision for people not to walk on the road anymore. So find another $30,000 or $40,000 and we can probably make it really good. Whether it fits into the transport choices budget, I don't know. Rob will have to talk about that sometime, but as I say, it's not as it's supposed to be. And just a comment about you saying you have to cross the road from the left to the right. We've heard comments that cycleways should be on one side of the road, not one on each side. So you've got me buggered, how the hell are you going to get onto that cycleway if it's on one side of the road if you don't cross the road and cross back again? Same deal. Just a comment.
Yep, no, thanks for that clarification, because I guess my only question was what was the purpose of the tracks and cut?
So through the chair, the board member Armstrong's comment about the possibly being a special projects. I believe whoever's budget it was that initially made the balls up of the terrible design, they should be fixing it rather than special projects from the community board, in my opinion.
What terrible design are you talking about?
The Queen Victoria where it floods.
That's what I talked about.
That's what David Armstrong just
I
said.
just
Yeah.
explained the reason why it's like it is. It wasn't a project, it was just the fact that it's a reinstated.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I don't think it's the special projects that should be funding the fixing of it.
There's nothing to be fixed, it's just a shingle way that was put there instead of grass, so people could walk on there instead of on the road. It wasn't a specific site way or
Well,
specific
Whether or not
walkway.
it should become a
It
project,
needs to be fixed.
the council carries on.
It has to be
Yeah.
brought forward as a project to council in some way.
Yes,
I think it costs about $25,000 for the shingle to put people who've got there. Just to lay
So
it
rather
into
than
the-
just forgetting about
Yeah,
it,
no.
because it was historically has always been, you know, like that, let's make it fixable.
problem.
So that's something we put to start.
Well,
It's checking how we go out there.
well, I could say now, a priority for council footpaths, because we've got a priority program right across the whole district. We're spending money on footpaths. That's not on the list, so it'll start at the bottom and work its way up. So unless you want to accelerate it, you'll have to put, well, if you want to accelerate it, you'll have to put some community board funding towards it. Let's do some estimates first, what it is, because I'm not entirely familiar with the issue is, but we need to get that scoped up and get some estimates on it. Come back to you.
We've also got the section down Whakarewa Street was praised at the public forum some time ago.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Just to clarify, the issue is it gets flooded and it's raining, and so if the path can't be used, so people have to go on the.
You've raised another concern now. It's not just a footpath, it's actually some sumps and pipes and drainage, which price goes up. So
Maybe we should have just left it in grass.
I'm wondering that, councillor.
It's like, it's not sure to say, it's the report part or it isn't. No. You know,
Be with it.
Go for it.
Were there any other comments from the, or discussion from the board from our correspondence? Okay, so it's, chair's report's been moved and seconded. Just all board agree, 2 parts, anyone against, carried. All right, financial summary. Okay, so page 57. Were there any? Oh, first motion to receive the report. I'll move it. Can I have a seconder? Board member Hart. Any discussion from board members, councillors on this? Yes, councillor Walker.
If we're looking at the summary,
Yeah.
you on page 55?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at 57.
I'm looking at 50.
Look at
Oh, you want to look at point 1?
no, actually, I want to look at 1.2, the net financial position as of the 30th of June is a surplus of 27,178. Well, how does 1.4 come in, the net position of Motueka Community Board's overall funds? What's the?
So got the 27.178 and where are you?
You look at 1.2 in the summary.
Yeah.
Then you look at 1.4, the net position of the Motueka Community Board's overall funds as at the 30th of June is a surplus balance of 188,000. Can someone, for someone like me who doesn't understand this, give some clarity on that, please?
We have anyone to provide?
Been a long day.
To page 57.
Yeah.
Oh, 57. Yeah.
So that's got the breakdown. So we've got.
So we look at June year-to-date actual. The bottom, it has 27,178 surplus.
Oh, right. Yeah. And the equity section. So.
Now let's wait for council to catch up.
Rude. Underneath this cover.
Page 57.
Yeah, page 57.
The table there.
Got it.
Go along to June year-to-date actual.
Yeah.
Go down to the bottom. 27,178 is the surplus for the year.
Mhm.
If you go down below that table to the left-hand side, it's got equity. At the 1st of July last year, you already had 160,000. You've added another 27 this year, so now you've got 188.
Right. Unspent surplus. Marvellous. Shouldn't have any problem with halves then, should we really?
Are you suggesting I put 188,000?
Not, not, yes, not this minute.
Okay.
So the only, I just got clarified earlier, was around the discretionary fund. So remaining balance as of June, so not including the ones 2 that were passed today, there's 10,857. Emma has confirmed that the July one will come in because I was just working that out. So that's basically 15 projects if they're around full amount. So there will be some funds coming in July to top that up to carry us through. Were there any other questions from the board? Yes, Councillor Walker.
Probably had too much caffeine today, to be fair. So, how do I say this? Because we were in a workshop when we had some figures given to us. And there was some conversation with Mike Drummond in the room whether we wanted to relook at how we set our money and what areas where it's allocated. I hope I'm not walking on ice. Is there an appetite for us to talk and look at this? Because some stuff we can get done real quick and real easy and our community benefits from really quickly. And the discretionary fund is one of those areas. But there doesn't appear to be obviously lots and lots of money in there, and yet we sit on all this other surplus money. And so is there an appetite around our table to relook at how our money is allocated and what authority we have with spending it?
Yeah, put that out to the board. Is there? Yeah. Got a nod from board member Hart, and I'm happy to discussion.
It's a fluid thing. I think needs to be looked at. What, you know,
I don't believe it's been reviewed for a while.
no, it should be, you know. Yep.
Yeah. And they've done it just quietly.
Board member Armstrong.
My understanding is that 5809, the expenditure of the last around, we've got money left over from that carried over, and we get added in this year's not there for discretionary fund.
Where are you, board member?
The discretionary fund expenditure. Oh, that's sorry.
Yeah. So above that,
The available funds 11,000.
yeah,
Yeah,
2,000.
it's quite a lot.
Yeah, so it's roughly 15 projects, the current amount.
Mm.
But it wouldn't hurt, I guess, to get a bit of a,
Well, you'll notice, you, Chair, the budget for 23-24 has already been set. If you want to review what you want to fund to determine what your community board rate would be, you've got opportunity as part of the LTP long-term plan over the next 2 to 3 months to review that. So if you wanted to have an offline discussion about how you reallocate your budgets and your funding, got that opportunity, as Mike Drummond outlined for you.
Yeah.
Can I suggest if you do that you perhaps involve Mike Drummond or one of his teams so that they can actually let you know from a financial perspective processes that be followed? Yeah.
I understood that the current chair was quite keen, but I get he's not here tonight to speak to.
yeah. And I think that was in relation to one particular line item that was going to allow that money to be able to move. So yeah, I encourage further discussion. Yes, board member Armstrong.
My impression from that workshop was that with Mike Drummond was that he was quite keen to take that further, but in a workshop environment where we look at the various options and pros and cons and so forth, rather than making a decision.
Yeah.
Decision now.
Yeah. So that's something we'll put back to him to organise a workshop.
And what would happen in that situation there is you'd have your discussion and then it'll be subject to an officer's report to you confirming those discussions, and you make a decision and recommend to council how you allocate your budgets. That's how the process would work.
Does that go back to full council? Excuse me, Mr. Skibby?
Sure. It might be just we'll go to full council eventually as part of the LTP, but I don't think that particular decision needs to go to the council. You could actually put it straight through to officers to put into budgets that go to the council. So this is what community board want for their community board rate. Those of you representing the Motueka ward around the council table can explain or answer any questions to the rest of the community about how you've reallocated that. Yep.
That all the discussion for financials? Right. Okay, so the report's been received. Runs in favour. Anyone against? Carried. Okay, last item, 7.5. Oh, this is 7.6. Special projects action list. So Motueka Community Board receives a report. Can I have a person to move and second? Councillor Dowler, seconder. Board member Hart. Okay, do we want to go through these one by one, or were there any specific questions that the board wanted to raise.
Which way you do it? I've got a question about one of them.
Okay. Well, how about I go down the list? So first on the list is playground update Thorpe's Bush. Last update. All stage one new area well underway with completion estimated to be mid-August.
It's me,
Fantastic.
we have a staff member here to
Excellent. So you'll be able to give us a
start a
July
conversation line, and he's here to speak to you.
So through the chair, yeah, I'm overseeing the Thorpe Bush project and also the North
Street.
playground. I'm in to engage with iwi initially. Soon to be coming to Youth Council and also this group to have some discussions around some of that feedback. So I'll be intending to come over a number of periods of months to come and have a chat. So my first point of call is engaging with iwi. Then I'll come to either this board and Youth Council at the same time. Happy to be led by you any way you want me to there. So that's what I'll do with both of those things.
Okay. Sorry, you had to wait all that time just to about.
Don't move.
Don't worry about this more.
The day out, no.
I was going to keep going down your list.
Yep, down the last year. Okay.
I would imagine, sorry, through the chair, the funding for both of these projects is minimal. So I assume that possibly we could look at that maybe back after a certain meeting that's going to be before. Sure.
Yeah.
You've got a pretty good surplus, so you can increase if you have to.
Continue upgrade of Motueka Skate Park.
So just through the chair, I understand that should be completed in the next few weeks. Talking to Lynn Hall, who's managing that project. Graham Rummer from our projects team has been handling it and
So by August or?
by August.
Wow.
Opening Hui Pufuri in August.
That's right. I understand.
Sure.
Lynn's already.
Would you like me to yell?
Excellent. Okay, 61, 62. All right, accessible playground equipment at Dix Reserve. So Councillor Dowler.
Yes, Mr. Strange, I see it's all in red writing there that there'll be an update from Tony Strange, currently acquiring an estimate for the entire play area footprint to be reinstated with rubber matting so that we can present these costs to the board so they can decide allocating funding to accompany this. Do we have a price sheet?
We have a number of prices. I got this through last night. I've got some information here I can talk you through. That's and I'll prefer to hand that out if that's all right.
Thank you.
Plans and bits and pieces, but hopefully I can explain it with my. Yeah, I think there is another. Yeah. Yeah, there is no key, but I have got this to help us through. So just fill one out. Yeah, we document writing. And everyone,
Thank you. Maybe
let's do your one. Hand of mine over.
It's all just literally one was for over here, so they can see the map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So through the chair, what we asked for was breakdown of costs for breaking down the areas that we're looking at. So firstly, the red and orange areas, there is a price to install rubber matting, which is area A. Two prices we've got, 55,000 and 45,000. So that's just the red and orange areas. So not really. That's what we proposed initially, and you guys asked us to come back and the next softball area is the existing playground area shown in mulch. So if I just hold this up, it's a little bit confusing. I apologize. So it's just that area there itself. Just that area, that grey area there. Is what we're talking about. That supplier A is saying that is 100,000, and supplier B is 89,000. Okay, so it's kind of it is expensive material, but going down the list, softball area C, which is the swing area. So that's this one over here that we're looking at, which we're going to combine. The last meeting we suggested that we'll combine them into this single swing by itself. That'll be combined into the other area that we're putting in a 2-bay swing. That area is 43,000 or 38. All right. So the combined area, which is A, B, and C combined, is a total of 168,000 for supplier A, 172 for supplier B. So there's a number of options there, obviously. We have some thoughts on it, of course, but I guess it's more about funding opportunities that this board has and the level that you might like to go to make it accessible to all. I guess that's the message that I've got from the limited time that I've worked with you guys so far, is that this project was to provide all accessible activity.
Sorry, through the chair. What was your total budget in the end of?
It's 128, and that's outside of already purchasing the carousel. So we've got 128 in total left. That's not a lot. Just a question, clarification. Sorry, I've just seen this for the first time as well. Under got the blue highlight, you've got supplier A can do area A and B at 101, and one of them is quoted 55 and the other one's 100. Add those together, 155, and if you do them both, you're going to do it for 105. Is that correct? Yeah, that's what the really? Yeah, I know. I'm going to clarify that again this morning. Yeah, because I think it's a no-brainer. Yeah, exactly. So
Could be the work and I'll deal with you.
Yeah. Not quite sure on who these suppliers are, to be perfectly honest. Maybe just check that one, because I just want to raise it with the board, because if it's that sort of saving, I'm just sure. Yes. So Manu's really helped us out with this one, and I only came through late last night at 7 o'clock. So I made some calls today to the landscape architect, and I only had a chat with them. It's a 33% discount.
Maybe sure to work.
Yes, Councillor Walker.
So the 128K that's left, how much of that is equipment as opposed to the surface on the ground, obviously?
Excuse me. So we're still yet to choose the other piece of equipment. That was something I didn't really follow up any further until I came and talked to you about with some more funding for the rubber matting. So it looks to me like, you know, the rubber matting is certainly, you know, a big portion of the entire play upgrade. It's unfortunate. Well, it's not. It's kind of where we're going with play spaces these days in terms of, you know, making it all accessible. We're going to have to face this right across our portfolio of playgrounds right across the region. So
But I guess the prior conversation that we had as a board is that if you're going to do an access for all playground, you can't put one thing in that is wheelchair friendly and then not, and that's it. That's all that they'd be able to access, because that's still very much excluding them from the wider, which is why we set your way to get costs to do.
So the other.
But to make it accessible for.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. And I guess we don't want to exclude anybody. The only way we can include people is by making it accessible with rubber matting, as you say. So there are other elements we can add in, which is quite cost effective, which is kind of mounds and sensory. People can still access those. I mean, this is all still, but it's really minor, smaller items that probably we're trying to fit within the budget. It's unfortunate that the budget isn't really reflecting the need. So
if it was done, sorry, through you, Chair. So it's our reserve, yeah?
Yeah.
So this is probably a question for you, Mr. Kirby. Can we partnership and get other funders to help us if we wanted, if the board has lack of funds to cover this for whatever reason, a pool springs to mind, are we able, because at the skate park, we got other funders involved and we now are getting this amazing skate park for our youth, maybe some of our toddlers, depending on how brave they are. Are we able to leverage off this money that we have as a board to get others to help us to make this the best it can be to cater for all of our community?
I'll say yes. But the next question is, which funders would you approach?
Disability New Zealand, do they have I don't know, Brett's the man to ask about that. He's the fundraising expert. He's not here. He's busy.
Well, I'm happy for you to do some research on that if you wanted to. Your contacts.
I just would be disappointed to think that we went so far and then just because of X amount of money, it stopped us actually delivering what the whole vision was it to make it accessible for all.
In order to progress this, Tony, if we just did the red and orange, that doesn't preclude us coming back and doing the
rest of that playground, that area. Yeah. No, it doesn't. I guess though that I'm still concerned about the funding that we've got even to do what we're trying to do here anyway. Again, I take your point. I think it's worth trying to do it right. If we can obtain some funding, other sources of funding, that will obviously hold the project up. This money is in the current financial year.
I was suggesting the 55,000, just committing that now. Yeah. Out of the 128 you've got. And then coming back later to do the other 100,000 or the rest or whatever.
Whatever comes in.
Yeah. In other words, it doesn't have to all be done at once. We can do it in stages as the funding comes through. Right.
That's absolutely cost though, won't it?
Pardon?
Yeah.
Well, if it's the combined cost, because I'd say he's going to come over once and do the whole pay.
Yeah, that's right. Right. If you're going to say 55,000, you probably want to get the extra funding in there. That's right.
So through the chair, I think too, there's an opportunity to expand it slightly. Sorry, Grant, you were going to say something before, but you can expand this particular area a little bit. I mean, it's all about fall zones and where kids can access. There is we've got some seats over to the left-hand side. There's a footprint that we can develop a little bit. I haven't checked the reserve management plan for this particular reserve to see what we might have or not have. But generally, so I guess what I'm saying is that if there were more items that you were thinking about putting, as well as the rubber matting, we just have to read those.
Because I guess, Grant, I guess the thing is if you're making it accessible to all, it's not just rubber matting, isn't it? It's equipment.
Through the chair, you're right. And also the other big item is the accessibility to the whole space, because it's not all, we don't have, I was here a little while ago checking it out and I noticed that there was people with prams trying to get across a really sodden area to this place. That's a pretty critical part of making this work as well, and also possibly something across here as well, which is You know, so that's an accessible swing that needs to be accessed as well. So
Yeah.
there's concrete that's involved. Parts.
And that's not included in those estimates there, is it?
No, that's just rubber matting. Yeah, so the playground budget is around accessible, the concrete footpaths, as well as the play spaces or the play equipment. So when you're starting to talk about that stuff, we're getting to a point where 128 is pretty tight.
Yeah.
And Chair, I'm suggesting that perhaps you've got this information now, is that it's then go away and come back with a scope of work for each of these stages, doing the footpaths, equipment and everything, so we can actually see what the total cost is going to be for the budget and see where we cut it, where we look for extra funding.
The Chair, sorry, Richard, we haven't done detailed design. We haven't done detailed budgets, so we've got to do that anyway. So yeah, it's part of the next phase anyway.
I'll just check, sorry, Grant, you wanted to speak earlier and
So,
come back to that.
Just through the chair, given that the board is looking at the RFCs funding soon, again, I was wondering if there might be an opportunity to look at some of the other playground projects, Beach Road, maybe Tamatu, Thorpe Bush, and reprioritise some of that funding. Maybe if you wanted to consider focusing on Dex Reserve and perhaps completing that one in totality, fully accessible, and then deferring those other two for the following year and looking at the RFC's accounts again then.
Yep.
Just a
With
thought.
discussion.
So we'll get the total estimates back to you. The other aspect that you have got is you've got that equity of 188,000 sitting there, that you've just added 27,000 from this last year. We utilise some of that if you wanted to on Dex Reserve. So think about that one.
With the Chair, I'd be more than welcome to come back and get some more feedback on some of the items that we might be selecting. I was going to do that anyway. I feel that's a decision that you guys really should be making anyways, as well as even having another chat with our youth as well. I think it's important that, you know, like you say, we consult.
Is there any avenue for community of feedback and around playground equipment and stuff?
Yep. So what I do know is that there has already been a lot of community consultation. I noticed in the notes that this has been going on for
A while. Okay.
I remember community fatigue on this one.
So yeah, it would be nice to
Then we just want to get done.
touch, but do it the right way. And
I never had grey hair until we started talking.
Look, I'm more than happy to be involved in any consultations.
Okay. People.
Back to, through the chair, to come back to what Grant just mentioned before, and it had occurred in my mind as well. If the RFCs are dramatically cut because of this additional land purchase, then a whole lot of these things might be just up for, we mightn't have the money to do these jobs at all next year. So that's why I was worried before when we brought this up earlier, that if we're going to if the council's going to make that decision for us and then we suddenly get the RFCs cut back to a third of what they were or whatever, we got some big decisions that we'll have to make, and some of these other things we're assuming will go ahead. Does concern me.
We do have a carousel already purchased.
Yep.
Do.
Good starting point.
Yeah.
Just going to get the rest. No further discussion. So did you note that down?
Yeah, I think it's got some notes on that.
Oh,
Yep.
thanks.
Tony and Grant come back with some.
Yeah, come back with some quotes of the full scope of the project.
And that might mean some more detailed drawings.
Yeah.
Up a little bit more. So I'll start working a little bit harder on that.
Thank you. Appreciate that, and I appreciate you both stepping around to address that. I'm not sure if there's anything else in for you guys. I'll just quickly go through. Maraho Sandy Bay Association. Has that been done, or is this something else?
Ongoing.
Ongoing. Okay, long-term landscape management plan for Motueka Cemetery. So Board Member Armstrong.
Again, we've been through this a few times recently. I'm still confused, given what Grant said before, about the $8,000 that's in there being switched to pay for ongoing work in the cemetery on the existing plan. I thought when we decided that was going to happen, and Mr. Kirby might have a memory on this, that would make the ongoing work a part of council budget, and that the $8,000 would then be freed up or could be used for a new long-term management plan. But if that's going to be used just to pay for what was already in council budget, I'm questioning whether the special projects should pay that. And I thought we decided otherwise beforehand until what Grant just said.
My recollections, I don't think there's anything in the district funding for further implementation of that landscape plan.
Okay.
The discussion at the time was when this was set aside to do another or update the landscape plan from 2013. General feeling was there was nothing wrong with that landscape plan, and perhaps that money should be used to implement the next stage of that landscape plan. That's my recollection of the discussion that you had.
Okay. It does differ from mine, but if that's where it went, I'm happy to be.
Not sure if the others heard what I said and whether
No.
they accepted or not.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to just touch on that again? Because I have also been in discussion with David Ogilvie. And this.
I had also earlier back in last year.
David Ogilvie promoted the idea of doing a landscape plan for the cemetery.
Yeah.
And that's when we said, well, we've got one from 2013 and we presented it to the board. If you wanted to spend the $8,000 updating that, the general feeling was that there was nothing wrong with that landscape plan, and rather than spending another $8,000 doing another plan, that we actually do it, spend some money to actually implement it further.
So I'm assuming everyone's seen the landscape plan. I haven't seen the landscape plan.
Well, circulated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I was chairing. It was requested, and I circulated to everyone.
We can send it out again if you want to.
There's two parts to this, isn't there? There's the landscape plan and then there's the ongoing maintenance, or it's what we sort of fell on.
This is not ongoing maintenance.
No.
This is actually implementing some more capital work in it to align with the landscape plan that was done in 2013. So it's not to do with operational, it was to do with more capital. Yeah.
I was just wondering if that's what the discussion was in the board table of why they didn't want to progress. But no, we're just.
So, I mean, I'm happy for the board to make another decision in that regard. If you want to spend the $8,000 updating the plan, well, we'll do that. But the general feeling was amongst Richard Holly was the judge on that. He says, well, the landscape plan 2013, we sent it round, it already covered most of the items, and not a lot of it had been implemented. And that was probably better the money be spent implementing.
All I was trying to do, the chair, was just establish whether the $8,000 going to be used that way, or it goes back into carryover for the pool we have at the moment. And it sounds like it's been decided that it will be used to continue.
That's what I thought had been decided, Madam Chair. If the board wants to change otherwise, I'm open to that discussion or that decision that you made.
Said something for discussion. Maybe I'll do a little bit of homework and then.
Okay, so we hold fire on that at this stage.
Beautification of High Street, well underway. Yeah. Any further comments on that?
I think
It's in the design phase at the moment, so the design is picking out we've got the words and the photos for most of it, so it's just in the graphic design.
Cool. Now the improvements to the saltwater baths, including landscaping. So again, this is one through the OFCs.
So I think that, sorry, to share.
Yes.
The ones from here onwards are the new ones for this financial year.
Yes.
Previous ones were all ones from last. Previous several years, in some cases. These are all up.
These are all
new ones
got.
right?
Yeah, these have all
Not
actually got,
started yet.
Jake. So just for the benefit of public, so the staff are 2/3 of the way through replacing the decking with completion to be carried out this financial year. I just have a question around the RFCs, but that's money that's already attached to that, isn't it?
So these projects aren't included in the list that we presented earlier in the report, are they, Grant?
No,
These are already been
projects.
correct.
Okay, fantastic. Southern end of the walkway, cycle path into Travis Street. Oh, yeah, sorry, councillor Dowler.
Right, you read
Thank
the,
you, thank you.
you read the red, but I'm not happy about that at all.
Not happy about
Which read?
which one?
Under the complete southern end of the walkway, cycle path into Travis Street Esplanade. Both the end of North Street and the saltwater bars. This is the one where Downers were looking at putting their money in, that they've been good enough to give us as a community project. They were looking at putting a 1.8 metre pathway down there, which it says in there, keeping with the other paths in the area. And then it says the cycling groups feel that the path should be 3 metres wide, which is wider than the car needs to travel on, to allow the electric bikes travelling at speed. Then it says, is this consistent with the purpose of these reserves? Well, no, not at all.
Be careful, councillor. Just a little while ago, we were asked to consult on things. We've got some consultations, the feedback we got.
Yeah, well, I'm just putting my consultation piece on the.
During a
back.
pushback, it doesn't need 3 metres.
So you know the predicament we're in. We say, right, we're going to throw that out. We're going to do something.
I know that, but I know for a fact that the pathway we had down Sports Park from the Noy Street to Talbot Street, that's only 2 metres wide. And we had to put a post at each end to stop the cars doing a rat run through that at 2 metres. That was when that got first put on.
Okay.
2 metres, you're asking for trouble. And speeding electric bikes, with this right side of playground where kids are going to be playing, and the saltwater bars where kids are going to be playing. Speeding bikes, no, sorry.
Downers funding this.
Downers are funding up to 1.8 metres wide. I'd say they'll blow their budget on that.
Yeah, we'll just,
I know they have a limited fund. It's not an exhaustive fund.
cycling groups have said otherwise, and we say, well, we'll just leave it for 1.8.
I'm just concerned about we just sat through a workshop this afternoon on occupational safety and health.
Workshop.
Yeah, I know,
But there's nothing, councillor, there's nothing in this
we
update.
would fall over, and this is a place where we could fall over.
Councillor Dalla, there's nothing in this update that says it's going to be 3 metre wide. What it says is the cycling groups feel
Yeah.
it should be 3 metres.
So I'm just saying,
So,
my opinion, no, my opinion.
excellent.
So I've got a resolution of the 16th of 5th, 23, and I'm not sure what that resolution was, but I suspect it's the 1.8 metre wide footpath that we've been approved. Is that right?
No, just to the special projects, that's a special project. That was a resolution.
So the resolution is then 10 grand on that footpath. Right. Okay. So could you go back to Lynn on that? 2 metres at the most.
Oh, so against the consultation of the community, is that what we're saying?
Well, it sounds like the feedback from here was that yes, not to go to 3.
Well, because I guess the other side to it is when you're walking along there and there's not enough room for, crossing traffic of people's.
No courtesy around anymore, is there?
No,
Go like Helen,
that is-
ask people when you can and don't fit in with the group. I mean,
Well, Great Taste Trail is generally only 2 metres wide, all those boardwalks and everything, and that works fine with people passing on them. It's
3 metres does seem excessive.
3 metres when you're having an urban area, when you're going to have cyclists and walkways going both ways. I think 2.8 metres is the minimum required. So this is a reserve. So yeah,
That's a little bit.
well, okay, Downers are putting money into it. Bit of some money. I don't think it's going to cover it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
all right. I'll
Yes, councillor Walker.
So Kirby, should we actually just check what the scope of that work was and what the conversation that we had with?
True.
Well, at the moment, the scope is 1.8 metres in keeping with the other paths in the area.
So we don't have to acknowledge what we've had recommended by a staff member then. We can go ahead and say, actually, this is what the scope was, this is what he's paying for, offered to pay for.
Sorry, which staff, are you talking about Downers?
So Drew Host came to us, said he had this money. We as councillors went around and showed him ideas of how we as a community could embrace their generous gift.
Right.
Then it's come through on a special project, which we voted in. Then we've had some recommendation from a staff member, which I've got in green because I was horrified when I read it. Barry's is still in red, which changed from 1.8 to 3.
There's no recommendation there, councillor. The cycling groups feel that paths should be 3 metres wide to allow for electric bikes travelling at speed. Is this consistent with the purpose of some of these reserves? There's no recommendation from Lynn or anyone else to say that it should be 3 metres and not 1.8.
So it's just a comment.
So the question is this consistent with the purpose of some of these reserves? And I would say it's probably not consistent. Reserves are not for bikes to bike through. It's actually reserved for people to sit around and.
So we've got action point to go back and say it's not consistent and we're sticking to what the scope was.
Correct.
Thank you. Move on.
You're very right.
So not doing 3 metre wide.
All right, let's quickly move on. So contribute to reinstating picnic tables and seating, general landscaping, this is here in Dex Reserve. 70,000 budget from Better Off funding, landscape plan currently being drawn to enable consultation with community board and iwi in August.
Good.
Yes.
Comment, it's just, it's interesting here, through Emma, we're trying to sort out if our contribution was being added to 70,000 or not. And Stephen got back to us and said he hadn't heard about that. And so we go back to the planners now to make it 10,000 more. So lucky I asked that question, or we would have a plan that was going to 70,000 budget and an extra 10,000 sitting around doing nothing.
Oh.
So,
Thanks, we've got 80,000.
So it's 18.
80,000 now.
Yeah.
Didn't know until. Was it?
It's good to know. So maybe that just needs to be noted in there. That's a total of 80. Contribute to walkway upgrade of Little Kaitiri and Stevens Bay.
So that, yes, you raised.
Another consultation.
Yeah, you raised that earlier today. I think there was 6,000. A board member, Armstrong, raised that about the upgrading the walkway from Little Kaitiri to Stevens Bay.
Or you say. That one's all.
Who wrote that? Stephen Richards.
A bit confusing there. We're going to the library.
It's in the wrong one.
Emma, who wrote the comment 607 under the walkway between Kaitiri and Stevens Bay, 6th of July? No?
Just need to shift the back.
Just reflecting on the conversation we had before about RSCs, this one specifically says at the bottom, are we looking at RSCs in total at this meeting as a separate report? So notwithstanding the comment earlier about these items were not part of that schedule, this one seems to fall into question whether this particular item is.
I think that there's two items here. The first sentence under 607 is about Little Kaitiri, and that talks about the Motueka Library upgrade. I think that's supposed to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
The one above it, maybe?
Yeah.
It just needs to move up to the action above.
Yeah, that goes up to the action above, that's correct.
On that, fix it.
Thank you. That clarifies it.
Yeah.
The 10th, it has not started yet, so they've got it on tap, right.
Right, and we've got no comments on re-gravel and upgrade for
Gravel and upgrade.
Queen Victoria Street between Whakarewa and Parr Street. So we'll just hit those discussions, yeah?
I have a feeling that's been covered off in transport choices or streets for people.
Yes, not.
That's what we're getting clarity. So will that 10?
So I'll get Grant to just confirm that. When we come back with the special projects from the RFCs at the next meeting. We'll have in there what we're going to fund RFCs, what's been funded elsewhere, so that you can see all these projects. So we make sure that nothing falls through the cracks and we're not doubling up.
Yeah. Excellent.
Could that, sorry, could that work we're just talking about then, could that include working out whether we add in some more special projects this term with the surplus that we've got, or I mentioned it earlier on in the meeting and we said we'd talk about it at this point, but because we do have a big surplus and what we do with that.
If we purchase the property for the swimming pool, you're likely to only have between 400,000 and 500,000 left of RFCs. At the moment, you've got 1.2 million. So if you add the 180 to that, you're still going to get nowhere near doing all those projects. So you're going to have to prioritise somewhere down the track.
Suggesting that some of the special project money that's surplus could go into projects that might drop out the bottom of the RFC. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes. 188,000 that you've got up your sleeve right now, you could use that to fund some of that. That's correct.
Excellent. Any further questions, comments? Okay, so we've moved and seconded that. Everyone okay to pass? All right. Anyone against? Carried. That's that. Yeah, we'll finish with a bit of care. Feel free to join in. Motu hamato mai mo tēnei wā. Mana ki tia mai. Mātou katoa o mātou hoa o mātou whānau. Aio ki te awarangi. Thanks, everyone. Let's get a cheering. Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
I declare many points.
Cecilia. Oh.
Almost like you need a little lift.